Hello, Gold Derby fans. I am Charles Bright, one of the contributors for Gold Derby. The 75th annual Primetime Emmy Awards have just wrapped up with so much something, and you are joining us now for the post for our wonderful post show that we do for most major award shows. And I am joined by two of our veterans here at Gold Derby, Joyce Eng and Chris Rosen. Is it Chris or Christopher? Do you go by?
You could say Chris. It's fine.
Chris. Okay. See, it's new. It's new things for everybody here. Um, so I'll just ask you. I have a feeling I know what your response is going to be, but what were your overall impressions of this batch of winners that we got, Joyce?
Oh, me first?
Yes, you were smiling so widely.
It's, I've never been so bored by a ceremony, despite really liking the shows and the people that won.
I felt the exact same way.
Same.
And I feel like this is a result, a consequence of the delay. Because if this exact ceremony had happened in September, we would have all been thrilled and excited. But some of these people, we were watching them give a speech for the third time in 8 days.
Yeah, it felt very much like, been there, done that almost with quite a bit of these, even though, like what you said, like we like the programs, and I don't think and honestly, I'm looking at the winners. I don't think there's a bad winner in the lineup, but It still just felt very underwhelming, and especially by the time like they get to writing and directing for a comedy, and the creator of The Bear is not even there. And I hope that he's fine, and I wish him well. But it's like, come on, you knew you were going to at least win something tonight. So,
I mean, like Chris Storer not being there, forced Anthony Anderson to vamp with like 20 minutes remaining. Because
I could almost feel like I could hear someone.
We had to recap the show.
I could almost feel like I could hear someone from the wings going, stretch.
I feel like they really cut down his mom interrupting people's speeches after it went so poorly with Jennifer Coolidge.
That was a huge bust.
Yeah, and like she intervened just when Jennifer's speech was getting funny.
Yeah. Well, it was just like last year. She got cut off at almost the exact same moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like they were kind of like, put the kibosh on that for future speeches, and then like Chris being absent for 2 awards. So I mean, it ended, I think, like a minute early, right? It was like,
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like production wise, I thought it was well produced, and again, like I thought like the winners were great. It's just like it feels rubber stampy, even though it's not, because they voted in August. We just didn't know the winners for 4 months.
Yeah, Chris, what do you have to say on this?
I was definitely I agree with everything Joyce said. These are my favorite shows. Succession, boy, I love Succession. I could watch it right now. Put the whole thing on. Loved The Bear. Great show. Beef, fantastic. I was bored silly. We just watched them give all these speeches last night at the Critics' Choice Awards. They just did all the same stuff. So that was just like, everybody felt like, even the winners felt like they were going through.
Well, there were so many empty seats in the auditorium. Like everyone was at the bar.
Well, that was another. Anytime they showed the crowd, it was just like sparsely attended. Let's say it felt like.
I couldn't register that until like halfway through the ceremony, when I was looking at the back, and I was like, "Oh my god, all those seats are empty up there."
I just was like, even like, and I think I was wondering this: is it a matter of that everybody was tired of giving the same speeches, or just was like a little like, not embarrassed is not the right word, but just like, I'm done this already, right? Like a lot of
like everyone just knew like who was gonna win,
right?
And then like once like it was pretty clear we were just gonna anoint the same 3 shows we've been anointing the past week early on, and I think everyone just like, let's just go hang out at the bar, like grab a drink and chill out, and then like someone will wrangle us, like if you're a nominee, wrangle us back to our seats for our category.
And then like the two I would say like in terms of speeches, the ones I loved Kieran Culkin's speech, somehow elevating
obviously.
again. It was still great. I thought it was he seemed genuinely emotional. It was like really good. And Niecy Nash-Betts was amazing. And Paul Walter Hauser was not amazing, but it was at least notable. And I was like, at least, well, they gave their speeches over a year ago at the Critics' Choice Awards. So,
exactly a year ago.
Okay. So I was like, those are a little fresher than seeing, Jeremy Allen White again and Io again and Sarah Snook again. I was just like, oh my God, how many of these things are we going to do? I found I thought the production was okay. Joyce, you were saying, I thought the pacing of it felt like really off. Nothing.
It was very quick.
It was rushed and also endless to me. I don't know how they managed to do it. TV magic there.
Yeah, like it was very fast. I felt like we were just burning through things, but then I would look at the time and it would just be 9:16. I'm like, holy shit! Like,
yeah, really.
What's weird about that is that usually when they do that, I notice it and I get very annoyed with it. This one, at least for me, at least, it felt a little more natural in terms of it. It didn't feel like it was purposely being rushed, and like you almost could feel the cane coming out trying to grab people to come off.
But yeah, I also was like, I didn't understand. I couldn't the staging. I found like recreating the famous sets did not work for me at all. It's like, this does not look right. It doesn't feel right. Why are they there? Why are they here?
The American Horror Story one was hilarious with Dylan McDermott.
I assume Connie Britton, like Chris Dorr, maybe has COVID. I think they said backstage, right? Evan Moss Bacharach said, I wonder if Connie Britton was supposed to be there. I thought so. I was surprised she didn't show up. Right? That was strange. The whole thing was just strange. I would say I laughed. I legitimately laughed at Anthony Anderson's mom. While I think that bit did not work, her yelling at him when he was like talking about being stuck in the costume, which seemed genuine. I actually believe that was not intentional, and I thought that was like a really good bit. And I laughed at that. So that was good. That was a positive, I would say. And I thought he did a good job as a host compared to what we've seen in the last 8 days. I would say he was the best of the 3 hosts we've had in the last week, in my opinion. But
yeah, he was good. And I like the show overall, just, because it's the 75th anniversary. So they really did want to pay tribute to classic shows, popular shows. And they're proud of their history, unlike some other award shows. So
who shall go nameless. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about those sets of the old shows. It reminded me of, oh God, how many years ago was it? I guess it was like 15, 16 years ago. I think it was the 2008 Emmys when they had
the 5 hosts.
That's when they had the 5 reality hosts, and they had the different they had like different like recreations of famous sets as well. And that was for the 60th anniversary. And that just
not a great show.
Yeah. You like this one better?
This one, well, that one was because of the 5 hosts, which they never did again, and everyone involved was like, that was terrible. Why did we do that? This, again, I think it would have been different had this exact ceremony happened in September as scheduled.
I mean, that definitely that put a damper on
like Chris, you and I, we've talked so many times about how when they rescheduled it because of the strikes, it should have happened at some point in 2023 before the year was over. It should not have been in the middle of these winter awards when everyone is just focused on the Oscars and films, and it's going to get lost within all these. And some of these shows also have TV categories too, and no one cares about TV because everyone's a film snob. And then to also do this on a holiday, everything was kind of stacked against it to be successful. I think the ratings will be down, especially against football too.
Lowest ever. Maybe.
Yeah, and then
in all fairness, the game that was its competition was not a very exciting one. No. So that could actually play.
True, but yeah, I don't know the cross audience appeal of those two.
I always wondered whenever they're on Fox, who are the people who are staying from football to watch the Emmys?
I mean, I've been in Emmy press rooms and stuff, and they would just like play the football game before the Emmy show in the press room. So we would just watch it there.
I mean, and I'm curious about something you said, Joyce, about you said you felt like this would have felt like more of a surprise in September, and I kind of feel that with at least the Bear winning comedy series, because that's what I really surprised me is that they voted for this back in August, really, and even then they were voting for the Bear for all these awards, and I'm wondering if. I'm wondering why you think about it, because it still feels like it might have been just with the overwhelming nature of how much these shows dominated. It still might have been underwhelming. But I'm just curious if you could just speak a little bit more on that.
I think like at that time in September, August, season 2 of The Bear had just dropped in June. So like the final couple days of nominations voting in June. So it got all these nominations. So then I felt like it really could have peaked for final voting in August, and I think the only thing was just deciding if it was like strong enough to beat Ted Lasso, which got the most nominations it's ever gotten, 21, and it's clearly like the Emmys still love the show. And, last year it won when, a lot of people were predicting it not to win because it didn't win anything in creative arts last year, Ted, which it did this year. And, like a dramedy, like The Bear has never won comedy series before. Like they tend to go for lighter fare in series, like the acting categories, you could still win, but series, they still reserve for, the LOLs. So I think at that point over the summer, like it still felt like it was kind of tight. And then, like the Emmys obviously had not been able to award The Bear yet for season 1. So I think, like it winning series would have proven like, oh, it can actually do it. And it was also off the heat of season 2 over the summer. But now, coming off the heels of it dominating the Globes and Critics' Choice, it just feels like old habit, Yeah.
Was there any win that you were particularly very enthusiastic about, like that you're just like that just made you feel good? Were there any of those this year?
All of Succession's wins, but specifically Kieran's and Sarah's. Both of whom I kept. I did not change after Last of Us dominated creative arts. I know a lot of people felt confident in Pedro Pascal winning because of the triple vote split. The only thing I do regret changing was going to the White Lotus for directing, because I had Connor's Wedding this whole time for directing. But there was like the dreaded triple vote split stat in directing, because it's very hard. They're so lazy. It's very hard for a show to overcome the triple vote split. And then it goes to the series runner up. But it just shows like, how strong Succession was to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, I got all the Succession wins were my faves too, but I guess I'll say something different then. I really liked the Evan Moss Backrack winning because I love
that was great. That was Forks was his rainbow.
And it was great seeing him win. I thought he seemed like genuinely happy. And actually the Bear winning comedy was great because I thought his speech, when his co-opting of the comedy speech was better than his own winning speech. I thought that was a great way to end that whole the show. I thought that was like really fun. So I was like in on that a lot. And Kieran's speech I really loved. I thought his was him and Niecy Nash Betts were probably the two best, I think. In the whole.
I felt like Niecy's speech was when I first felt energized by the ceremony.
Same. And then how about the reunion? In terms of the reunions, I did love the Grays one. I gotta say,
they didn't bring out the deer though.
I know. I love seeing Catherine.
That's the moment when I actively said I'm not watching this show anymore.
Well, I just felt like they had, because like when she did Actors on Actors of Ellen Pompeo last summer, she mentioned the deer, how she worked with the deer again on State of Affairs. And then she just Instagrammed it the other day. I was like, that deer is coming out on the Emmys.
I highly enjoyed that. I thought that was good seeing them back together of all the reunions. And some of them worked better than others, I would say.
I love that they had a reunion for It's Always Sunny. Like, is it?
They were good together though. At least a lot of their other ones were pretty stiff.
Well, some of them haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's also a good way to honor Rob McElhenney with his show Welcome to Wrexham, which took 5 last week at Creative Arts.
Yeah. I liked the idea behind a lot of them. Clearly, it's obviously they couldn't get everyone on board for all of these. Like I wanted Robert Downey Jr. there for Ally McBeal.
Yeah.
So.
And he could have been there to campaign, like Coleman Domingo and Jodie Foster.
That Rustin sneak, man. I heard it.
Netflix doing it. He played Bayard Rustin in Rustin. If you haven't seen it, it's on
so relevant to
go see it.
The Governor's Award.
Well, I liked the Ally McBeal one because it felt very much like it very much was keeping in the spirit of what that original show did with its especially those original first few seasons. So, even though I would have liked to have heard Peter McNichol say something, at least seeing them all work together, and it just felt like it just worked for me.
Yeah, and that whole segment just made me sad that Callista never won.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made me sad for that, and also reminded me that Harrison Ford didn't get nominated for Shrinking, which is an absolute travesty.
He was there though. I saw him right behind Andor.
That's what reminded me of it.
He was there. He was right behind Anthony.
We got to get Harrison to come somehow. Let's do an Ally McBeal reunion.
They should have had him wrapping people up like with Anthony's mom. I think he was right next to her.
It feels, we don't usually get Emmy ceremonies around this time. So, we already have half of the television season over, although most of it has not happened because of the strikes. But do we, at least we know Succession can't be back next year. But The Bear almost certainly will be back for season 2 next year. I mean, I know it's a year, it's 6-7 months out, but do we feel like, this is like, we're just going to see another repeat, at least on the comedy side in September?
Like The Bear actually winning for season 2?
Yes.
Instead of unofficially. Yeah, Hacks will be back. So I think that lead actress race will be interesting with Jean Smart versus Io, who will be in lead for season 2. And now reigning champion Quinta Brunson.
But I think The Bear could win the same awards though, because I feel like it'll win supporting actress with either Abby Elliott or or
Liza. Yeah,
Liza could win it, and then Evan wins for season 2, and then Jeremy wins again, obviously, and then the show. So I think it can still win the same awards. But I do wonder if I would win in the lead actress category over Jean. I guess we'll see. That'll at least be interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I no offense to her, I feel like Quinta won't win.
So that was the one. I don't know about everybody else, but I was like, at least Joyce and I was talking about this a lot. I thought any one of those 5 people.
Oh yeah, won. And I was so disappointed. It was the second award of the night. I was like, that should have been last.
And I did not have Quinta winning. I didn't think the TV Academy did not seem to really love Abbott.
A lot of us, I think we all just overthought a lot of these categories.
Oh yeah, big time. I got absolutely annihilated in my prediction because I was like, well, who's going to win? All the beef people. So I had Young Mazzino winning and Maria Bello winning, and I should have just went with these shows that were on 2 years ago and that won, because why not? They didn't really pay attention to these categories.
The only upset was Daily Show, and that's only because John Oliver had to switch categories.
Yes. But for actress, I was just surprised. I guess I was still surprised Quinta won because it did not seem like they really liked Abbott very much. But then when she won in the room, I was like, everybody really likes Abbott. Maybe I was wrong. Obviously.
I don't think they don't like Abbott. It underperformed this year with nominations and everything. But I think that's still kind of it's like there was no one else in that category, I guess, that was strong enough to usurp her. You know, like she did win an Emmy last year. You know, so I think what we just know is like Abbott may never truly explode, like going forward, like nominations wise, like some shows do, but it's still being watched and liked. So,
yeah, I think I ended up with Rachel winning that. I don't know where
I had Rachel. Yeah, they just went with everyone who was in first place.
They could have just, it's honestly, they might have just gone to our odds page and just voted from there. I would not be surprised.
We got a question from someone from a user on YouTube, the Filled channel, asking if we think the Television Academy will try to move The Bear over to drama, which I don't think they'll do, because I think that initiative has to come from the show itself, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, because they're already accepted as a comedy.
Right? Yeah, and now they've won multiple awards for it.
Yeah, they won 10.
I was thinking, this is not to. I was thinking, remember when Beef was a comedy?
Oh yeah.
How would have this been different if Beef was in the comedy category, and how would have these categories been different? Would like
well, Beef would have won lead actress,
right? But maybe that's it, I guess, right? Like, I don't know. Or would it have split writing and directing with The Bear? Maybe.
I think The Bear would have won directing because of the winner.
Right. And I think Beef would have won writing.
And then
probably would have won series.
The Bear would have won supporting actor.
Mm-hmm.
And supporting actress.
Mm-hmm.
So then, yeah, I think the tough ones would be series and Jeremy versus Steven.
Would have been fun. That could have been fun. What might have been?
And when is Deep season 2?
I don't know.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, are there any other thoughts that you guys had? Something that, you know, I'm trying to think, but as you know, we were saying, it felt very, even though we liked what was happening, it just felt very uneventful and underwhelming. And it feels weird, you know, that we're still even that it's still even something we had to do even.
Yeah, I definitely think the big error of the whole ceremony was not having it in November of last year or December.
And any time before December 31st.
They could have done it December 30th. It would have been better than doing it tonight after the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards. Because even though they voted first, it does feel like they're playing catch up.
And then, you know what, like the casuals watching don't know all this stuff.
No, I was texting with friends who were like, "Oh, obviously the Bear was won and going to win." I was like, "Well, yes, but also it's for season 1," because they were like, "I love Forks and stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but it didn't win for that yet. It's actually winning for season 1."
Abbott is going to win for Forks twice.
It will technically only once, but yes, I think in theory it would win twice.
We'll officially submit it in 7 months. So
yeah.
Well, Joyce and Chris, we thank you very much for joining us on this, but we are going to welcome in 2 of our other contributors from the Peanut Gallery. So again, Chris and Joyce, thank you so much for everything. Go get some rest and, you know, recover from this amazing thrill-seeking night that we had.
Oh my God, I'm so pumped. I can't even sleep now.
I know. The only thing that's making me pumped is the idea of Jamie Lee Curtis winning Guest Actress in a comedy next year. Because
the Bear is going to take up like 9 Guest Actor slots.
That's true. That's true. That's going to be tough.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right. Y'all take care. I am being joined now by two of my fellow contributors, David Buchanan and Tony Ruiz, I guess it's pronounced. I don't know. We've never met.
Yeah. No, never.
Never. So what'd you think?
Well, Tony usually writes our review, so what did you think, Tony?
I think what everybody else has said is just perfect. It was the shortest and yet the longest show ever, because there was no surprises except for Trevor Noah. And for some people that thought that Ted Lasso was winning, but it wasn't. It just wasn't. It was anticlimactic, especially coming at the end of all these speeches. And I had some issues with the show overall. I don't think Anthony Anderson was particularly funny. Some ideas seemed like they would have been better on paper than they would in actuality. But it's going to be. I'm just actually kind of glad that it's over, because having this ceremony in January has just screwed everything up in terms of like the flow. We have a flow that we try to get to. We do Globes and Critics' Choice, and then we start talking about BAFTA and SAG, and then we get up at 5 ungodly o'clock to watch the Oscar nominations, and then the Emmys are just shoehorned in here. So.
David, how about you? What were your impressions of the ceremony and the winners as well?
I thought it was fine. The winners were largely who I thought was going to win. I had Succession and The Bear and somewhat Beef sweeping. I was not surprised by that at all. So it was anticlimactic. I think it really, we were all talking about this in the live blog, that having those other ceremonies so recently really took the wind out of the sails of even the acceptance speeches. Like, to see Jeremy, I know this is like, for a television performer, this is the pinnacle of the, of your career in terms of the award that you might win for the performance. But Jeremy Allen White, Io, they've given this speech 2 or 3 times already, and it must be hard to try to save material. They knew they were likely going to win. What do I say at these other award shows that are also televised? Like a very, it felt a little rote, and I hate to say that because so many of the winners are really good winners. And it just felt like some of the specialness of winning the Emmy, was kind of taken away by the fact that we've seen them win 3 times in 2 weeks, or whatever ridiculous statistic that is. I think the ceremony overall, I think I really want to applaud them for trying to make the 75th special and bringing casts together. Like, I really feel like they took the seriousness of the anniversary. They paid appropriate tribute to the seriousness of 75. I do wish that some of the shows that they chose to recognize were stronger. Not that I didn't enjoy a lot of the appearances, but when you have some casts, of multiple Emmy-winning dramas and comedies that maybe they tried and they couldn't. I'm sure there are some, that were higher on their wish list that they couldn't get, that I would love to have seen. On the other side, I was happy to see that some of the snubbed series that never got Emmy recognition were invited to kind of come on and complain about, being overlooked. I thought that was a nice idea. And, the Martin cast had some fun with that, and Always Sunny had some fun with that. So overall, I think it was a fine ceremony. I think, like Tony said, it's kind of great that it's over. I think the winners will be looked at well in hindsight. Like, I think they'll all hold up well. But the timing just was ruinously bad.
I just lost what I was going to say, so I'm very sorry about that.
Well, actually, and there was one. I think the one speech that stood out to me was actually Quinta Brunson, because that was not part of a sweep.
Yeah,
we've become. I think some of us are just so beaten down by these sweeps.
Yeah.
Not that any of these winners are undeserving, but there is, with the popular vote, there is this kind of like this wave. We have seen sweep after sweep these last few years, and for The Bear winning for all of this a year ago, it does, a sweep aspect of it does also contribute to a kind of the anticlimactic nature of it. But how great if we had the tape system again, which we'll never have probably. We could have had an Anthony Carrigan win, or we could have had a Janelle James win. And that's not taking away from any of the people that did, but there was more suspense when more was riding on it, especially in light of some of the shocker wins that we got at Creative Arts. You know, Charlie, you know, rightfully, I think, predicting Storm Reed. But, you know, Judith Light was not
right
number one.
about
Sam
that
Richardson
one.
was last in our odds. And, you know, so when we don't
Yeah,
have the tape
I don't
system
think
in
the first
place,
place.
it just.
I was saying I don't think the first place person.
No, go ahead, Charlie.
I don't think the first place person in any of the guest categories won. Because I know Storm Reed and
except Nick Offerman was first.
Yes, he was. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Critics' Choice has become very unreliable in terms of tea leaves to read. I know casting, you know, this year's even the casting award, which you always used to look to as what's going to win casting to help us, you know, suss out what's ahead in the series categories. You know, Ted Lasso didn't win casting last year, but it won comedy series. The White Lotus won casting this year, which makes sense because it was an entirely new ensemble, except for Jennifer. But Succession won drama series. Like, I feel like the creative arts are really doing their own thing, which is terrific. I love the surprise of that. Like, especially for folks who year after year, like me, probably, I can't remember every year, but predicting Harriet Walter every damn time for Succession, and she never won. And then Succession, you know, wins 6 categories. You know, here, like, despite vote splitting, like all these categories where they have 3 directors, three actors, you know, it just seems like they are in 2 totally different universes, which is kind of exciting, but we should not overread into these creative arts winners anymore.
Yeah, I was when I saw that who was it? That Harry Walter was in first place in our odds for guest actress in a drama. I just said, that can't be right. I was like, no, this is not. I was just like, this makes absolutely no sense, and that's why I actually was. That's how I ended up, you know, settling on Storm Reed, and so. But yeah, it's very anticlimactic.
Well, and if I can, you know, there's some people bringing this stuff up in the chat, and I thought that this was one of my running criticisms of the ceremony as a whole, is that sometimes the presentation of the award, the presenter and the presentation of the award didn't make any sense. Like, you have Carol Burnett giving out lead actress in comedy, great. The whole cast of Cheers is there. You don't have them present comedy series. You know, it just didn't make any sense to me. Some of that mixing and matching, it just was like, nah. You know, you have Rob Weiner and Sally Struthers. I mean, it makes sense that they're kicking off the in memoriam to Norman Lear, but maybe have them present the supporting races, since each of them won twice in the supporting comedy categories. You know, every time I saw a different presenter, I just wanted to go, that might have gone better someplace else.
We are also being joined now by one of our other contributors, Chris Tsang, who I'm sure has the biggest shit-eating grin on his face, because I know he's been predicting. The Bear for comedy series for a while. Can you hear us, Chris? Okay, he can't hear us right now, so we'll just keep going, at least for the moment, seeing if he can get that sorted out.
For the record, I've also had the Bear winning comedy since the beginning.
I mean, and how much do we think? Do we think that this is likely to just repeat next year for the Bear?
I would just say Ted Lasso did something very similar for 1 and 2, where I think a lot of their wins for season 1 were helped by the fact that season 2 was airing in that voting period. And then, you know, season 2 did not have the benefit of, you know, a new season, and it still won, you know, not all of the awards were repeats, but it still did incredibly well. And the Bear will have season 3 airing in June again. So assuming eligibility, the calendar is the exact same as it would be in a regular Emmy year. Assuming season 3 is good, you know, as good or, you know, even maybe a hair not as good as season 2, I think it will do really well, especially once people see, whether or not they realize what year they were voting on this time around. When you see a Jamie Lee Curtis on the guest actress ballot, like, you're not going to forget what episodes, she was in, or that performance. So I do think, unless there's something entirely new that's going to come and crash the party that we're not anticipating, it is going to do incredibly well again.
Question of all, so we know, I mean, obviously for guest actress in a comedy, this, I know we're talking about next year, but maybe it's not, I'm just curious about. That's how underwhelming this evening was.
I was just thinking that.
But Jamie Lee Curtis, of all the people in that standout, and you could have several people nominated for that episode 6, including Gillian Jacobs and Sarah Paulson as well. But obviously, I think a lot of us would say that Jamie Lee Curtis would be out front for that. Who do you think would be out front from that episode in guest actor in a comedy series?
I think that's where you could see. I think you could see Bob Odenkirk there. I think you could see John Barenthal there. I think you could see Oliver Platt there. Although Oliver Platt had a much larger kind of presence in this season, so I don't know whether he's going to qualify for supporting. He might go into supporting.
John Mulaney. John Mulaney. That's a kind of nomination that, like, if it was a more competitive, non-sweep kind of a thing, maybe he wouldn't get nominated because it's not a very, impactful. I mean, he's good in it, of course, but in this kind of thing, the Bear might get 4 or 5 nominations in that category. They love John Mulaney.
Yeah, but also I think, you could also have, Olivia Colman, and you could have Will Poulter.
I keep forgetting she was in the season.
I think you could see a case where, the Bear takes up quite a bit of real estate, and not just from that one episode.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also need to pour one out for Better Call Saul, now officially 0 Emmys for its entire run, because we don't count those short form Emmys. Those don't count because it's a separate program. That just I knew it was a long shot, but still, when Rhea Seehorn loses, when Bob Odenkirk loses, and then it loses writing, it's just like a little shot to my heart, or whatever's left of it.
Well, and I think that this is, it was interesting. I joined several of the other Derbyites at the Better Call Saul luncheon yesterday in Los Angeles. No one likes
to show off, Tony.
I do. But in talking to a lot of them, a lot of it comes down to luck, and I think it also goes to a question that has come up in the chat over the course of the pre-show and the post-show, which is, how do we explain all these sweeps? And the explanation is, I think, quite simple. It's when you have the popular vote that you have now, and a larger voting block combined with a lack of kind of a tape system, then it's very easy for the show that has captured the zeitgeist to completely run the tables. We saw it with The Crown, with Schitt's Creek, with Succession, and this year with Succession and The Bear doing it. Unless there is a change in the voting system, I think these sweeps are going to be more popular. I think there was a great ad leading up to this Emmy ceremony that I thought was funnier than anything on the ceremony, which was basically, celebrating the 6 shows you watched and the 40 that you didn't. It's just it's a deluge of prestige television, and unfortunately, I think Better Call Saul just kind of got lost in the shuffle because there was always something more kind of zeitgeisty than that show.
I will say, after so many years of being snubbed, seeing Rhea Seehorn get into the competition was. Obviously, I would have loved to see her win, but because I was worried she was never going to get nominated for that role for playing Kim Wexler, and I'm so happy that she got in the past couple of times because damn it, she deserves it. She's so great on that.
It does make me very excited for her new show that she's doing, which is very, very under wraps. I didn't get anything out of Vince Gilligan yesterday. I tried.
It's also interesting. We had it's interesting. Anthony Anderson was joking about this. He said, "How are you guys feeling about the chocolate Emmys?" Which is something that made me think that they were giving out chocolate Emmys. But then I was like, "Oh no, that's not what he's saying with chocolate. He's talking like how some people call DC Chocolate City." So so you had a bunch of prominent African American wins, especially Quinta Brunson, only the second performer to win lead actress in a comedy. The first being Isabel Sanford, and that was in the early 80s, I believe.
81.
It was because it was several years
over 40 years.
And so she's only the second to have won. We also, I'm trying to think. We also Trevor Noah winning, which is definitely its own huge. What's the word I'm looking for? Accomplishment there, and also Ayo Edebiri winning supporting actress, but also quite a number of Asian Americans winning prominently tonight. Of course, with Beef, with Lee Sung Jin winning 3 tonight, including Best Limited Series. Then you got also Steve and Ali winning. I was wondering if we could get a bit about that from you guys. But first, I want to go to Chris about this first, because before you get into that, just give me your initial thoughts about the ceremony as well.
Yeah, I had a number of tech difficulties. Probably the most entertaining part of my night. So. Basically, the only thing I'll say is this is coming from someone who thinks The Bear, Beef, and Succession would have done well regardless of what the voting system was. They would have done similar to the way they did tonight. But this is just this is a culmination of 8 or 9 years of popular voting that it just doesn't work for Television Academy. The reason it works for the Oscars is because, there's a limited number of films. Everyone's more invested. There's more chance of people watching it and judging it based on whatever the category is. But when it's for television, it's just impossible for people to watch all these shows. And so the more that you expand the voting body, the lesser chance there is for under the radar shows to be rewarded or nominated. And so they just default to whatever's the hot popular new thing. And it's just very tiring. And it's such a shame to just see it happen year after year of just them awarding the same thing over and over again.
It felt like the real turning point for that was the Schitt's Creek sweep in 2020.
Totally.
Because even before that, when Game of Thrones would be winning drama series, it would not sweep. It's still, in all the years that it was on, only Peter Dinklage is the only actor to ever win for that show. So I mean, so it felt like that sort of infrastructure was still there. They were kind of still a little averse to it. You could get a bit more of them, but you wouldn't get. Now they've just gone crazy. Even with shows I like, with Schitt's Creek winning all 7, same with The Crown.
Yeah,
although,
I would just.
The only thing I would say, the only reason I would differ with any of that is because I actually still think under the tape system that Schitt's Creek would have swept because every single one of the submissions were that good. I think The Crown was really where The Crown win, because I mean a lot of people were like, really, Tobias Menzies?
The Tobias Menzies one is the one that just made you go, what?
Even Olivia Colman winning over Emma Corrin. I was like, really?
I think the Schitt's Creek win that surprised most people. If you weren't, a lot of folks at Gold Derby were predicting a sweep, but I think a lot of folks, including myself, looked at the directing category and said something like the Paladinos work on Comedy or Cabbage. Like, that is a directed episode. That is the most directed. That is such a challenging, craft heavy episode. And not that the Schitt's Creek, I think they won for the series finale. Not that it's not a great episode and a perfect finale for the show. But I think if you ask directors which is the better directed episode, you would think most would say Maisel on the merits. So that to me is where that just felt like it got caught up in, I don't necessarily disagree with you, Tony, on the other ones. I think all the actors could have definitely won in a tape system. Maybe not Eugene, just because he's kind of the drier character of the four. But I do think that, the 7 for 7 for Schitt's Creek is, in a way, maybe not as egregious as The Crown, but that was definitely the start of this, trouble.
And Chris, I mean, you were predicting J. Smith Cameron in supporting actress, which I was really worried about, because I was saying right when the nominations came out, I was like, this is starting to feel like it's going to be a sweep for Succession. And if Tobias Menzies could do it, then I'd be careful if you were competing against J. Smith Cameron.
Yeah, I had the wrong two shows sweeping, which is why you should never go half-ass when you're uncertain about predicting a sweep. Yeah, and it just makes, that's what the Emmys have done. It makes you predict which categories could they potentially be lazy in if they're going to keep rewarding these same shows in these categories for certain. And it's just gotten to a point where it's like, okay, you have these shows that are definitely locks for winning. Now, what does that say about this category where it's on the bubble?
I think J. Smith Cameron had a better season 3 than season 4. Like, she had a great episode when the office is getting raided by the FBI, and she has to convince Logan to, let the FBI in. Like, if she had an episode like that in season 4, she maybe could have won. I just don't think, as good as she is in that show overall, I don't think she had any single moment or episode in the final batch that would convince people that they should check her off even in a sweep.
Do we have any idea? So I was mentioning about, we've kind of got everything I feel like we need to get out about what's gone on here. Do we have any thoughts about what might be eligible with I keep wanting to say next year's, but we are already in 2024. So later this year, the other Emmys, the hopefully regularly scheduled Emmys, what programs are you guys keeping an eye on? Do you feel could be big players next year? And also, what do you hope will be big players next year?
I think the limited categories are going to be, just an embarrassment of riches. I mean, based on what we've already had, Fellow Travelers was astoundingly good. This current season of Fargo is
cannot wait for the finale on Wednesday.
Oh, I can't wait.
Brilliant.
I can't wait. I mean, it's like the best. I thought I saw everything that John Hamm could do, and oh my God, he is absolutely terrifying in this show.
I've never been more afraid of someone wearing nipple rings.
Yeah.
And I have seen some questionable characters wearing nipple rings in my days.
I'm also looking forward to, you have the new Masters of the Air, the Tom Hanks produced World War II show. Maybe you have I think Shogun, the new version of Shogun on FX is going to be a huge player, particularly in the tech categories. There's so much. You got the new True Detective. It's an embarrassment of everything that's coming. I can't even think of everything that I have on my list of what I need to watch.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought we would have another Emmy season where Fargo and True Detective would be competing again after almost 10 years? And there's also the Kate Winslet miniseries, the Park Chan-wook miniseries with Robert Downey Jr., whatever else is left on HBO Max. And as
the
far
new
as
Feud, the new feud.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
so-
can't forget. Yeah, we were seeing ads for that. And it looks really fun.
And the bear, even hell, if it switches to drama, it'll probably win that. So, but yeah, but probably I don't know if Squid Game or Severance is going to be eligible this year. But if they do air in the next 4 months, then those will be big players.
What's the latest word about Squid Game season 2? Because I remember at the Emmys the last Emmys in 2022, the creator said that he was in the middle of writing. I think he said he had written like 6 of the 8 episodes or something like that. So we don't know. We don't know what the status is of that.
Severance is coming this year. It's just I don't know which voting period.
I'd add too, there was great recently debate in our forums about the merits of the Gilded Age breaking through at the Emmys, but it's doing really well with the guilds this winter. It just got into SAG Ensemble, and whether or not you're a fan of that kind of lush, frothy period Julian Fellows type of show, the cast is so like the names and the folks in that cast. I'd love to see a Christine Baranski and a Cynthia Nixon come back to the Emmys. So on top of everything else that you all have mentioned, that show is kind of sneaking in at the guilds lately and could do well after its first season practically got blanked.
And did you say
I also want to give a quick shout out to I just wanted to very quickly shout out Apple TV Plus's Monarch Legacy of Monsters. They're kind of like time traveling Godzilla kaiju series that I don't know what I expected when I started watching it. I did not expect it to be that great. Although you have Kurt Russell and his son playing the same character over the course of 40 years, and it's a seamless transition. It's fantastic.
And for comedy, Hacks is coming back. Curb Your Enthusiasm has its final season.
That's had a bit of a tougher time than it has in previous years, but I still would.
It's tough as Better Call Saul.
It's still, it's amazing that it still gets in comedy series. I mean, casting in comedy series, it consistently gets in. Larry David, they don't bother with anymore, which is kind of a shame because, I don't, whether it's a performance or not is one thing, but that's one of the, genuinely laugh out loud, performances on TV. So it'd be nice to see him get in. I'd love to see Curb nominated for comedy series one more time. And it's wild that it's only one and it's in its 24 years on, 12 seasons in 24 years. I think it's won only like 3 or so Emmys. It's insane too.
And one of them being directing.
Directing, yeah, the directing.
For one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah. And then Palestinian Chicken, I think, also won in
editing
much later seasons. So we'd love to see it do well again.
I mentioned the title of that episode to my mom a couple months ago, and she says, "Wait, there's an episode of this show called Palestinian Chicken," and we watched it, and I have not heard my mom laugh so hard. That's still one of the greatest episodes I've ever seen of television. Moving a bit back here to this. We talked about the ceremony and the wins, but were there any moments that were just like personal favorites from tonight?
I particularly loved the big. Well, I love 2, and they both involve very big man-on-man kisses. First, the kiss between Brian Cox and Kieran Culkin. Those two just adore each other. It's so clear. But I think possibly my favorite was, I said this when I found out that Chris Storer wasn't at the ceremony because he has COVID, that, oh my God, I hope Maddie Matheson goes up there to give the speech. And for those of you who don't know, Maddie,
with the Globes.
Yeah, like Maddie Matheson, for those of you who don't know, is like a rock star chef. He's also an executive producer of The Bear, and he also acts on The Bear. I've been a huge fan of Maddie Matheson for years, and I was like, oh, please just let him talk. And he didn't disappoint. Absolutely did not disappoint.
David, Chris, do you guys have any? Or
I mean, Tony mentioned my moment. I love that embrace between Brian and Kieran because, Kieran's won now, Jeremy won, Brian, who, Jesse Armstrong kind of called out in the drama series speech as the center of gravity on the series, who walks away empty-handed at the Emmys, but a great performance from Brian. But I've been waiting for Sarah to win an Emmy since season 2. She keeps, she kept losing to Julia Garner from Ozark, who's, wonderful as well. But I've been waiting for Sarah to be recognized for the role and was really glad to see her, switch to the lead category where she belonged this year and to take it home was very nice.
Yeah, when the ceremonies, when the Emmys are going to rubber stamp 90% of the winners, it really comes down to how the show flows and the quality of the speeches. And Niecy Nash-Betts and Kieran Culkin definitely gave one of my top 2 speeches. I like Trevor Noah's speech. He opened with John Oliver, of course, and about how they knew they would win jokingly if he was out of the category. He could have been in second place for all these years, for all we know. And Beef doing well. That meant a lot to me. It's still funny how we originally thought it was going to be a comedy when it was airing, and this is what happens. This is the profound effect of a genre change.
Which deserves to be in comedy more, Beef or The Bear?
Succession and The Sopranos deserve to be in the comedy more than something like The Bear.
I'd say one of the missed opportunities through no fault of their own, because he was out with a medical issue, was not having Elton on hand to win the last trophy in EGOT. Like, imagine the acceptance speech, if he was there. They mentioned it in their acceptance speech that, this finally gets him to EGOT, which is incredible, so deserved. Would have just been really nice to see him in the audience and then to win the award. That would have been a really great moment that unfortunately, they had to roll with. But, I was kind of hoping that he would be there because it seemed like he would win.
That was one of my bigger blunders this evening because I had that. I was predicting that for the longest time. And then after Creative Arts last week, I switched to the Super Bowl halftime show after that one, directing. And the one that blew my mind was the one production design, because I was like, wait, there was no production. it was just those platforms. It just went up and down. That was it. But so I thought that was going to pull that one out. But it is nice that Sir Elton has been able to get to EGOT status. And also, I do want to second what you said, Chris, about Niecy Nash-Betts. That speech is going to be lip synced by so many drag queens over the next couple of months. It's gonna be ridiculous, and she will be Queen of the Gays, as was foretold so many years ago. Do we have any final thoughts as we bring this post show to a close?
I hope the producers of The Late Show didn't read the odds on Gold Derby.
Oh man.
Well, Emmy season for 24 kicks off we kick off in April covering Emmys for 2024, which is outrageous because I assume the calendar will stay the same and we'll have, all the same eligibility calendar requirements as usual. And it's just going to be really a whirlwind to go from covering the winners in January to looking at a whole crop of nominees again in April.
Especially since we'll only be a month out after the end of the Oscars. So
after Oppenheimer sweeps.
Barbie Army would like to have some words with you.
Join us in September for The Bear Sweeps the Emmys season 2.
Oh man, well hopefully Christopher Storer will be there, except for being a wuss because he has COVID. Tony, you had it. It's not that bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
No.
That is a shame because, I mean, it saved them so much time on speeches that they were like actually stretching for time at the end of the ceremony.
Yeah, that was weird.
They were really scared of Anthony Anderson's mom.
Yeah.
And also a memo to Emmy producers. If you know you're going to have that many empty seats in the hall, maybe not keep showing camera angles that reveal how empty the hall is. Otherwise, hey, call us. We're available. I will fill a seat. I will turn right around and drive another 6 hours back there.
My ass is so fat, it only knows how to fill a seat.
And another reason why they shouldn't do sweeps, that and also the fact that, like, well, I mean, I'm sure this brings the Emmy producers some joy, but, you know, when you have the same shows winning, you're going to get relatively the same speeches and the same people being thanked. So
it's very true, and hopefully we'll get a bit more variety, and hopefully maybe not just that we'll get something different in drama, but maybe they can award 3 programs instead of 2. Just a thought. So I want to say thank you to David, Tony, and Chris for joining us on this post show. It's been wonderful having you here. To all of you here at Gold Derby, it has been wonderful having you predict and stick with us as we trudged through the strikes and everything, and we finally made it here. And now we are still in the midst of Oscar season. We got SAG coming up. BAFTA nominations, I think, are coming up this week, if I'm not mistaken. They are this week. And then and then soon, before you know it, it'll be Oscar nomination morning. And for the losers on the West Coast, they'll have to get up at 5:30. I'll already be up since I'm on the East Coast. The superior one. That's why we get everything first, right?
I'll have all the filters on my camera.
Not enough Vaseline in the world to rescue you from that, honey. But we still love you. Thank you guys for staying with Gold Derby. Keep coming here. Keep updating your predictions all the time. We're always getting new scoops about what's going on, who's going where in these races, and how people are reacting to things. So keep on making your predictions here. To the other 3, and to Joyce and Chris who joined us earlier, thank you so much. That's a wrap on this season. We will see you all later.